there's nothing like getting that final letter and realizing, okay, you're done, you can move on and proceed with using your motorhome for other things if you choose, and all of that. I was really satisfied. I realized that the investment that I made with Aero Tax and Marine Professionals was paying off. It was worth it. I mean, there's obviously an initial investment when you're paying someone to help you with something for a service. But when I got that, I realized, well, this was actually an investment that paid off. I can tell you, I really wasn't surprised. I mean, I was apprehensively or optimistically, I should say, cautious about all of that because, it's the government. You just never freaking know. But I don't think I was super surprised because everybody I spoke to just really instilled a lot of confidence in this whole process. I really kind of knew it was gonna happen. My name is Neil Wilson. I'm retired, and my wife is part of an LLC where she owns some property with some other people, and we were also interested in acquiring property for ourselves as rentals. And I knew that the best way for us to travel and look at that property would be on the ground and ideally in a motorhome, so we don't have to keep trying to find hotel rooms and that sort of thing. Primarily in a neighboring state too, so we're not really driving necessarily across country initially. I was also aware that if I use this vehicle for business purposes, that there may be a tax break that goes along with it, but of course I had no idea how that would work. And being familiar with Tom and Aero Tax Marine Professionals, I gave him a call, talked about it, and he explained to me that yes, that's certainly something that is allowed, permitted, and we can help you with that. So rather than trying to go it on my own and not really understand what is involved in terms of record keeping and all that sort of thing, I hired Aero Tax Marine Professionals to assist me with that. I had come across some, I don't know if it was emails or YouTube or something, and I had seen something about that. Of course, it didn't really resonate too much with me at the time. I did happen to remember the name of the company, and so I did some checking when we were thinking about buying this motorhome, and I believe I saw some other testimonials, kind of understood what they did, and realized that that was a good fit, as opposed to some other people that just register their motorhome out of state or something like that, which to me really wasn't the right way to do it, because I'm trying to do this legitimately, within the law and everything. And I just realized that that's probably not a good move, because it's not really the case unless I was going to keep it out of state. And I just really wasn't able to do that. So I thought this would be a better, more appropriate way to handle it. And anyway, that's how I discovered them. I heard through word of mouth and other resources, and saw that you had a good reputation. So my initial contact with Aero Tax Marine was over the phone. I just called, and actually I was really kind of surprised and pleased that I was able to talk to Tom himself. I mean, not that was necessary, but I thought, wow, this is great. I'm calling and somebody's actually picking up the phone and talking to me about it. And the funny thing was that I kind of knew that I wanted to go this route, but I didn't really know when it was going to happen. And we had found this motorhome, but it was all happening very quickly. I was able to talk to Tom and get the process going within a day. I mean, or on that call, I believe. It was really quite amazing, and got all the information I needed and the direction I needed right there. And I think it was probably a week later that this was all happening. So it was very fast, and I was actually really pleased with the way that worked. Yeah, so the transition from Tom to Julie was really seamless. I ended up speaking with Julie. I got a lot of correspondence from Julie with detailed direction, and I mean detailed direction, because everything that I was doing needed to be supported and provable with documents and so on. And it was extremely detailed, which kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I don't think I would have been able to figure all of this out or manage this by myself. And the good thing is that, if I didn't understand something that she was sending me, I could call Julie and she would explain it to me and say, no, it's not not that big a deal. You just need to do it this way. To the point when I was actually up there at the dealership calling them, and they were actually ready for me because they knew when I was taking delivery and all of that. So I was scanning and stuff to them or emailing it and talking to them, making sure they got it. And they were there and said, yep, this is what we need so far. Here's your next step. So it was a lot of hand holding and guidance along the way. The test period was another thing that it was very detailed and really had to be perfect because our intent was to use this motorhome to look at property, but also not mistakenly use it if we decided to go on a trip in the meantime. Because let's face it, we have it. We're going to use it for other things too on occasion. So and that was something we had to be very careful with. And they made that very clear to me that, hey, these are the requirements, and they helped me track my mileage and all of that stuff. I mean, as it turned out, far and away, most of the miles put on it were for going and looking at real estate. But had I not known that, or somebody else didn't know that, they might make the mistake of taking a long trip to Yellowstone or something because they have it and kind of messing all of that up. So it was quite good. We ran into some problems because of the time of year that there was some property we wanted to look at in Nevada, and we couldn't get there because it was snowing and all of that. Tom and Julie were really great about, okay, you know what, we'll give you some time frames when you can do that because we understand you obviously just can't go. And I appreciated that too, because I know that part of the agreement, really outside of the requirements by the state, but part of the agreement was that I would do all of this in a certain period of time. But they really worked with me on that because it was just beyond my control, and I really appreciated that. Well, driving across state for business purposes, I mean, the driving itself isn't really any different. However, there's a lot of record keeping along the way that, and I mean, I'm kind of that way anyway. That's just how I am. I like keeping records, I like keeping logs and all of that stuff. But it really came into play for this. And I think that's something everyone needs to know, is that you really do have to keep detailed records, and they have to be in such a way they accomplish what's needed, and also the communication with submitting all of that, which I would have had no idea how to do. But when I'm giving it to you guys, it was pretty clear what I needed and what I needed to put on there and when I needed to get it to you. So that part was different, I guess, maybe for most people. It's just the record keeping, the receipts, all of that stuff along the way. You really need to be aware of that. Yeah, I mean, there was a great deal of relief knowing it was over. Like I said, I keep records and I keep receipts and all that stuff. It drives my wife crazy, but that's just kind of how I am. Because I just get enjoyment out of that, keeping logs and all of that stuff. However, I think for most people, there probably would be a degree of relief not knowing you don't have to do that anymore, or if you lose a receipt, it's not a big deal and all of that stuff. So I guess it was a lot of relief with that, but I think it's the most of the relief I experienced was just knowing that I don't have to wait for some state agency to make a decision. I think that was the majority of it for me. So what surprised me the most about your service is, I think, not so much the outcome, because I was pretty confident that this would turn out, because I really got the feeling that in talking to Tom and Julie that they really know what they're doing, and they wouldn't really lead me down some dead-end path. So that wasn't too much of a surprise. I think probably the biggest surprise was just the availability of both of them, or really anybody I was working with, and the responsiveness. It was almost like I was the only person they had, as a customer, which I know isn't the case. They remembered who I was when I called. They knew my name and all of that stuff, and answered my questions. And I never got the feeling that I was bothering anybody. Aero Marine Tax Professionals, I would recommend, because they clearly know what they're doing. And I think my advice to most people would be the peace of mind that you get knowing that you did this the right way. Yes, there was a fee involved, but once you've done it and it's all above board and it's finished, the state signed off on it, you don't have to really worry about what's coming down the road. I'm directing that to people that want to roll the dice and register their vehicle out of state and all of that stuff. I mean, that's something we considered. I mean, but actually not really, because we had a legitimate purpose that we were trying to pursue. We knew that this was a legal, proper way to do this, because we're looking at additional real estate investments. But for those that maybe just want to take the easy route and just register it out of state, I mean, I know that from talking to other people that have, called some of these companies that do that in South Dakota and so on, they don't really manage anything for you. They just say, hey, we'll let you register it here, but they're not an advocate for you if something goes wrong. You're kind of on your own. And to me, that was unnecessary, because what we were doing was, perfectly legitimate. And the last thing I want to do is screw it up by taking some shortcut and not doing it properly. So I think that would be my biggest advice to anyone